Welcome back to another episode of Double Take. Welcome back to the NBA season. John and I are here with you. We are super, super pumped. I can't even put into words how excited I am that the NBA is finally back. We had a ton of incredible games the past couple of days, and we got a ton more. So, John, why don't you just start us off? Well, how you feeling, bro? How does it feel to have the NBA finally back with us?
Yeah, so obviously it's just wow. Like, that's my first reaction after going to sleep last night on Friday night after watching the end of the Mavericks-Rockets game and after just having sat and watched, 8 hours of basketball. Wow. Like, that was just my reaction.
Pure bliss.
Yeah, going to sleep last night after waiting 4 months. And I just find myself like I'm not present anymore. Like, right now I'm in Connecticut hanging out with some of our cousins, and like they're like, John, and I'm just like I'm like watching on my computer while they're watching TV, and I'm just like not there anymore. And I remembered like what it's like to not be present when sports are going on. So that's my first reaction, just wow. But credit goes to the NBA, of course, for being able to pull out this bubble system and all the technology they've implemented and all the safety precautions and the testing every day and the testing of the coaches and the media and all the players, of course. They've done a great job with all that. And of course, handling the social justice that's going on right now. And for example, like how they put Black Lives Matter on the court. They've allowed the players to put
different messages
phrases on the back of their jersey if they want to. And, where we've seen some kneeling during the national anthem. So they've handled that. And, they've been asking coaches during the, after quarter interviews, like, what do you guys think about, obviously there's a lot going on in our country as it pertains to racism, and like, how do you think you guys have been handling that? And the coaches have been giving good quotes, and, all the players are they got their heads in the right place in that sense. But another thing, I think it was Doris Burke that said it last night, and, the two are not mutually exclusive. There was a time there when they thought, fighting for social justice and playing wouldn't be able to happen at the same time. But it's great to see that both those things are going on.
Yeah, clearly they're coming hand in hand, which is good to see.
Yeah, and if you just look at the schedule that the NBA created right off the bat, the Jazz-Pelicans decided by 2 points, and we see Rudy Gobert, who it was kind of this poetic moment, right? He was
the enemy. He was the bad figure in this all.
Right. And that was the last game of the season on March 11th. We always remember like Rudy Gobert has tested positive, and we thought about him touching all the microphones at that interview and making a joke about the coronavirus, and then he got it and the whole season got shut down. So we remember that. And then now the first game back, and he was like the heroic player at the end of that game who saved
knocking down those free throws.
He hit those game-winning free throws. So then, obviously, the incredible Battle of LA, which we'll get into.
Oh, yeah.
Was another nail-biter where the Lakers won by 2 points. Then in day 2, we had 2 overtime games. We had the Blazers and Grizzlies going to overtime who were fighting. And at first, the Blazers went away with it, and then you thought the Grizzlies were going to take another great game. And then we had an Eastern Conference Finals preview between the Celtics and the Bucks. Incredible game where we saw Giannis go all out, go 36 points, 15 rebounds. And he also, for the first time in NBA history, he had 7 fouls. Incredible to see that.
Well, he actually didn't, but that's another conversation we'll have later.
And then lastly, of course, last night, the Houston-Dallas game, 2 great offenses combined for 302 points in another overtime game.
Incredible game.
So just those 5 games, like there were some other games like Nets Magic, but those first 5 games right off the bat, it was like, wow, I cannot not believe they really worked the schedule out. And so credit goes to the NBA for everything they've been able to do. So Alex, what were your first takeaways though?
I mean, I'm glad that I have you here to kind of give the rundown with the different games, but because I can't express it. My takeaway was just pure joy and I haven't felt like this, like excited or just so pumped about. I mean, I would say definitely about sports in a long time, but I don't know. Like same as you said, you were going to bed, and I was just like, don't have words. I'm so happy. Obviously we both love basketball. Obviously the past 4 months there's been like no sports, and just in general, it's not a great time for just everything that's going on. It's just craziness. Yeah. So and that's what I think another great thing about sports is like it's an ability to escape reality kind of. And you said you kind of were getting lost in these games, and I was the same way. It was good to have like a distraction and just something to enjoy for as long as it lasted. And of course you mentioned the games are great. I'm trying to imagine if it's just me excited about basketball in general, or if I'm just super pumped because the actual games are are so amazing. They did have a lot of great matchups, and we've gone to overtime a couple of times. So it's all great, and especially feeling good that we had a lot of close games the last couple of days, but today, John, I want to say this is the biggest blowout so far, the biggest margin of victory.
Right now, OKC's up to like 21 on.
So you know what? I don't want to speak
so.
too soon. OKC's up 21 on the Jazz as we are filming this or recording this, but the Miami Heat beat the Denver Nuggets by 20 points. And boy, was that amazing to watch. Just
Bam and Butler both had 22. But I will say they didn't have two of their they didn't have Jamal Murray or Gary Harris, which is fine. We were still gonna blow them out regardless. But
they were up
good
one
to get
at halftime. I was getting nervous, and of course, fourth quarter rolls around. We're up. We already are up 15, which is good to see. But Kelly Olynyk, he just put the nail in the coffin. He goes off. He absolutely went off. 17 points. He hit 3 threes in a row. He was playing like Steph Curry. It was amazing to watch, of course, and go Heat as always. So really happy that we got that first W out of the way, especially since we got a tough couple of games. I know we're playing Toronto, Boston, and Milwaukee the next 3. So those are going to be tough games also. So I'm glad we could make sure that we got this first W.
We'll win 2 of those, but. Yeah, and then just to get back to one thing we haven't talked about yet is just the virtual fans and, everything that we saw on the court. They had the virtual logos, which we see, but I guess they can't see. And it's just really cool watching this and being like, I didn't know if it would feel like real basketball.
It does. Right? It does not feel like a playground. It does not feel like a scrimmage,
it was going to feel weird. No fans, and just like no team courts, no home court advantage. But
empty gym.
It was very quick watching like Lakers Clippers. Like at the end of that game, it felt intense. It didn't feel like just some summer league game. So it was great to see that. I think the virtual fans, I think it's funny. I don't mind. I know a lot of people are critical of having the fake sound. I know soccer, they've been doing that, but I don't mind the fake.
Well, this isn't totally fake. So I honestly don't know exactly how they're doing it, but I do know that on the NBA app, there's a button that I can click, and it apparently is me cheering. So like you can. I don't know if did you not see that, John?
I did not see that.
Oh, so I saw they were advertising during the games, and then on the NBA app, it's like click to cheer. So it was like during the Portland game, actually.
That's super weird.
And I wanted Portland to come back.
So I was like clicking my phone and go, ah.
Well, I don't know if it was that. It might be that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think I was clicking a button and it was like projecting sound. I don't know exactly.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, it's good that we have at least you do see those fans. It's real people sitting there, so it is all good.
All right, so let's get into it though. We just mentioned the Lakers-Clippers game. What a great game, Alex. I know we were talking about this a lot in our last episode. Who's going to win the title? And these teams in the West right now, like those are the best 2 teams. I couldn't see another team really making it out. But what did you think of that game? Lakers come out of it winning by 2. What do you think will happen in the playoffs from what you learned from this game?
Yeah. So before I answer really quick, it's just funny. We've talked about LA versus LA like a million times, it feels like. And it's not a coincidence. It's because, the NBA, the season has obviously been extended. By now we would have already been looking towards the next season. But anyway, my takeaway from the game, so obviously the big storylines were LeBron had one of the worst. I can't remember the time that I've seen him play that poorly in the first 3 quarters of a game. And then Davis was kind of the opposite. Davis absolutely was dominating at the beginning of the game throughout really 3 quarters. And I know that when we talked about the Lakers, when we did our restart preview, I said, we know what we're going to get from LeBron, but Davis is the X factor. It's going to take Davis playing, the way he played the other night for them, like consistently through the playoffs, for them to win and for them to really be able to hoist up the NBA championship. But obviously, I kind of eating my words. LeBron was the guy who was struggling all night. He started off, I think it was like 2 for 11. And I was like, what was going on? Like what? And Davis, on the other hand, of course, was dominating. He had by the time around that time, he had 28 points maybe. And so
there's an easy explanation for that.
There's an easy explanation. So what I'll say is that here were the difference makers in the game. 1, Anthony Davis. The Clippers are built. They're really built to stop LeBron, and it's actually, clearly it worked out because LeBron.
They got Kawhi and they got Paul George and Patrick Beverly, like 3
Patrick Beverly.
Wing defenders.
They picked up Marcus Morris, and JaMychal Green was another guy who was spending a lot of minutes on LeBron too. So that team is really built, and then even the fact they picked up Joakim Noah, that's definitely just a screw you to LeBron. But so they have a lot of wing defenders who, of course, they obviously did a good job. They slowed down LeBron because they can just throw fresh legs at him. But Davis, they do not have, and I know they don't have a guy that can really stop Davis. They obviously have Zubac, and they have what's his name?
Montrezl
Harrell, who was not able to play because he's still.
But even I'm not concerned.
I was gonna say, I'm not too concerned either.
Undersized, but
it's funny because during the waiver wire, people were wondering if Tristan Thompson would get bought out, and the Clippers were a team that obviously wanted Tristan. So, if they were able to have at least another guy, Tristan Thompson, he plays good defense. So it's like if you can have another guy to be able to throw at Davis, maybe it can make a difference. But I went back and looked at the stats, John. These are Davis's games against the Clippers this year: 25-9, 24-6, 30-7, and 34-8.
So the last two gone off.
He's averaging 28 points and 7 rebounds against them. They can't really stop him. He's shooting 46% this season versus the Clippers.
Yeah.
So Davis was one difference maker, and then I have two more. Another one was the bench play. The bench players on the Lakers did much better job than the Clippers. Obviously, the Clippers. What did you say? Waiters Island, baby. So the Clippers are missing their 2 6-man of the year candidates in Montrez and Chicken Wings, Lou Will, of course.
Right, lemon pepper Lou.
Yeah, lemon pepper Lou. I like that. But if you look at the plus minuses, so I know some people don't really take this stat for that much, but it really does matter. It's like when that person was on the court, what was the difference? What was the differential? When LeBron was on the court, it was his plus minus was -4. Davis was -3. Kawhi was +16. So those are the starters, right? Paul George was +0, so I guess that means not that he's a non-factor, but he's even. Then you look at the Lakers bench: Kuzma +12, Caruso +9. He had a couple huge plays, and we have Dion Waiters +17. John, Waiters Island, baby. And then you look at the Clippers bench. Patrick Beverly played 16 minutes off the bench. By the way, he didn't start. He doesn't start anymore. I don't know why. I mean, Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson
was starting. Yeah, they started Reggie, right?
Reggie Jackson played 34 minutes. I thought that was crazy. Anyway.
They were trying to switch it up just because, obviously, their rotation, they didn't have Lua, they didn't have Harrell. So
I guess maybe they wanted Beverly off the bench. But anyway, Pat Bev off the bench, -9. Landry Shaman off the bench, -19. And Joakim Noah off the bench was -2.
Yeah, their bench was awful. They got outplayed.
So that was the difference maker. And then so let me just finish this before. The last thing I would say the difference maker was obviously clutch time. When LeBron struggled all 3 quarters, but when he came to the 4th quarter, he answered the call, and he obviously made the game-winning shot. And then he stopped Paul George and Kawhi in the very, very last play of the game. That was a huge defensive.
Yeah, that switch.
Exactly, that switch. So LeBron played great defense throughout the game, and obviously at the end of the game, that was huge for him.
Yeah. I mean, my quick takeaways are very similar. Obviously, the team is equipped to handle LeBron, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, dudes that have gone up against LeBron in the playoffs before when LeBron was for the Heat. And, now seeing those guys guard him, they're the 2 of the best wing defenders that, potentially have ever played basketball. And they're going up against LeBron. Davis, they don't really have an answer for him. And that's the reason he's, he had such a huge impact for them.
And he's going to be the X factor. That's what it comes down to.
He's going to be. But I will say this. The game did worry me a little bit about my picking the Lakers for the finals because it was a 2-point game, and it was the first game back. But they still were they weren't playing Kawhi and Paul George late at the end of the game until the very end, the way that they were kind of playing AD and LeBron. And I think that
Davis rested for a good chunk of the beginning of the 4th quarter.
Yeah. Well, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but there was time there I was kind of all right, why is Kawhi not in the game right now? And I think the Clippers still have this San Antonio Spurs, Greg Popovich mentality about, we're just going to turn it on, in the playoffs, and we're going to play our best basketball.
I mean, we're still waiting. Next year, we'll still be waiting.
No, you're right. But the thing is, I don't think we haven't seen this team live up to their full potential.
That's very true, and I think that's going to hurt them, though.
You may be right, but we may see what them do what the Raptors did last year in the playoffs with Kawhi. They come into the playoffs and they pretty much ran through the Eastern Conference and got to the finals shockingly, and then obviously the injured Warriors, they took them out. So we'll see what happens, but it worries me because the Lakers had to barely pull that one out. They needed great games from Caruso, from Dion Waiters, from Kuzma, and I hope those guys will show up in the playoffs. I won't be shocked if they do, but at the same time, seeing Lou Williams back, seeing Montrezl Harrell back, it's only going to get more difficult for the Lakers, and they barely pulled this one out. And one more thing I have to say, I love LeBron. LeBron's got the most game winners like of all time or whatever the stat is. Super clutch. I know that.
What are you about to say? What are you about to say?
It's a fake narrative that he's fake, that he's not good in the clutch. But I just thought that was a pretty ugly shot that he threw up. And
yeah, it was. But he got the rebound.
God, he front rimmed it and and got it. Because if it went off the side, it wouldn't have fallen right back into him. And he just had this little layup. So I'm glad it happened. I'm glad they were able to pull it off. And
but maybe they go to overtime then. Maybe we go to another overtime.
Yeah, and that that's LeBron. He was able to get it done regardless of whether it was ugly or not. But that first shot was ugly. He threw up a bad shot. And I think he was trying to get the foul call. He didn't get it. It was good defense. I think Marcus Morris was right in front of him, and he fell over. And then that's why LeBron was able to catch that ball, put it right back up. So, yeah, those are my takeaways. We're going to see these teams play again, I believe, in the conference finals. So let's wait for it.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the bench guys for the Lakers. As much as Davis is going to have to play almost as well as he played the other night for them to be able to win in a 7-game series. But the bench players are going to need to play well too. Not as well as they played the other night, because that was obviously kind of an anomaly that everyone was just playing as, like Kuzma. That was a perfect Kuzma game. He's playing great defense, and he went 4.
That was one of the best game I've ever watched him play.
I mean that's if you get that from Kuzma, obviously not consistently because that's like
what
really
we want from him. Yeah,
like that's ideally what you want. But so
last year when they didn't want to give him up in the AD trade, like this is what they had in mind.
100%. That's what they envisioned.
We're gonna have LeBron. We're gonna have our other 3-point shooters around, but Kuzma was like the third piece that they really.
Yeah, and the fact that he was playing great defense. But we'll see in the conference finals. Hopefully, we can get the conference finals. Please. I hope. The NBA should rig it for the conference finals for that to be.
Knock on wood.
Speaking of the conference finals, we might have had an Eastern Conference Finals preview with the Bucks versus the Celtics. To give you guys a little background, John and I, before the game, were on the phone with one of our buddies, Andrew Hundal. Shout out Andrew. We were talking about betting on the game, and John and I told Andrew, I was like, I think the Bucks are gonna win. I think the spread. What was it, John? 4.5.
It's 4.5.
So like Bucks minus 4.5. I'm like, I'd take the Bucks. And John's like, really? All right, let's bet. So we bet $20. John,
I got robbed. Just like
John thinks he got robbed. So then I guess let me ask you questions then, John. 1, do you think this will be an Eastern Conference Finals matchup? 2, do you think the refs blew the game? And 3, do the Celtics have an answer for Giannis?
All right. First, Eastern Conference Finals preview. Right now, I would say yes. That if I had to put my money on what I think, this has got to be the most.
You hear that, Jimmy? You hear that, Jimmy Butler? You hear that, Bam? He's down.
No, stop. Let me finish. Second, yes, the refs did blow the game. That was I'm going to get into this. And then to answer your third question, do the Celtics have an answer for Giannis? I do not think they do. So if they meet in the playoffs, I will pick the Bucks. But the Heat actually do in Bam Adebayo, which we can talk about another time. But that's the Giannis topper right there. So first, Eastern Conference Finals preview. I think right now, like I said last week in our episode, I got Celtics over the Raptors. And right now, although I do think the Heat have a shot because no home court advantage for the Bucks, and we're going to see them in the second round. And we got Bam. Bam, it gets me excited to think about. He's the only guy that can stop him. So the Celtics don't have an answer for Giannis because they don't have anyone with his size or near his size that is agile and can backpedal while he's going with a full head of steam at the rim. Whereas Bam is big, but he's quick on his feet and he's agile. So Bam is backing up and staying in front of him. And Bam did an excellent job in our regular season games again.
Even in the paint, the Celtics don't. They have Daniel Tice. Like Giannis is bigger than Daniel Tice. So even once he beats Brown or Tatum or bullies these guys, once he gets to the paint, like there's no one there to challenge him.
Right. So the thing is, I think the Heat in the 1 versus the 4 matchup have a shot to take the Bucks out. Surprising as that may be. Listen, we saw the Bucks. Everyone thought the Bucks were gonna, go. They're up 2-0 in the conference finals. We thought it was gonna be the NBA finals, and they didn't end up making it. But I would not be surprised if we saw the same thing come from the Heat. There's no home court advantage, and like I said, the Heat. Now we got Crowder, we got Butler, we got these bodies that I think will do a better job than the Celtics defenders. And then do the rest blow the game? I think they did. I've never seen anything so ridiculous where they reviewed 2 calls that were like pretty clearly to me. Like he literally just Giannis shoved. It was like there was a screen. And he shoved Tice. Like he like punched him almost. And then they kept saying, was the foul what was it? This one word they kept using was weird. Was it like
What, like
No.
unquestionable or something? Or
No.
Was it purposeful?
Was it like no? They said like was it like what was the word? I don't know. There's some word saying was it harmful? Was it a harmful foul or something like that? I was like, what are they talking about? Like he fully just shoved Tice and like that was Giannis's foul out. And guess what? The ref blew the whistle but didn't call anything. So now they go to review it and they review it and what happens? Oh, Giannis, we don't. It's the end of a game and we don't want the superstar to foul out. Okay, yeah. It wasn't anything. It wasn't a foul. We're gonna keep Giannis in the game. Okay.
Don't bet against Giannis, John. Don't bet.
No, and the Celtics at this point are at least in or might have been up to. I can't exactly remember. But then what happens? Giannis goes down, does his little nice euro, gets the basket, and we saw a great offensive play. It was Marcus Smart who
defensive play. You're gonna say defensive play.
Great defensive play of an offensive foul. He got the charge, called it. Then they go to the review, and they overturn it. Like, what are you doing? I've never seen something what was
it called on the floor?
It was a charge.
Yeah, it was a charge on the floor.
And then they go review it and they overturn the charge.
No, that one was pretty nuts. That one I was pretty shocked by that, but I of course as someone who had money on the line, I was happy about it.
Well, yeah, and that's why I'm saying, listen, I made a good bet. The NBA had to come in and save you. So yeah, you can thank the NBA for that. But 4.5 points for the Celtics, they did a great job, and they were down 15-2 to start the game. And I was like, no, it's going to come. It's going to come. And on top of it, Jason Tatum played very, very poorly. So he played horribly, and they still were in the game, and they still took the refs to give Giannis 2 extra fouls. So, one, Giannis went off, obviously. But they did pretty well on the other guys, right? Giannis had a monster game, but the Celtics were still very much in the game without, I think, their most important player, Jason Tatum, not having the best game. So, the truth is, they'll be in there, but they do not have an answer for Giannis, and the refs blew it. Like, what was that? Two times in a row, they gave Giannis a call.
I guess more for that game for me, more of my takeaway was just that they really don't have an answer to him, and it's not even like with the Heat. We obviously have we have Adebayo, we have Bam, but then we have a group, a committee of other guys who we can throw Jay Crowder on him for a couple of
team defense.
Yeah, team defense. We can throw a bunch of guys at him, and then if you even let's look at the Raptors. The Raptors have Siakam, they have OG Anunoby, they have Marcus Gasol in the paint. Like, they have these guys that can slow him down. The Sixers, you could throw maybe Simmons on him, you could throw Embiid, whatever. Clippers, you have Kawhi, you have George, you have all those other guys we just talked about. And even the Lakers, maybe. The Lakers, if Davis is maybe a good matchup for Giannis. So it's all these other top teams have a guy who can stop the MVP in the league, or hope to slow him down, rather. I should not say stop.
They're not going to stop him.
You can't stop Giannis.
Well, the Heat nearly did. Then we held him to 13 points. It was unreal, but we don't need to get into that again.
Yeah. But so I think, the Celtics, Tatum and Brown being great defenders, and even Marcus Smart, it was incredible to me to watch how Giannis just manhandled them. He's too big. At the end of the day, he's just too big.
Right. All right. So next game that was last night was incredible. Combined for 302 points. The Mavericks and the Rockets, who right now, Alex, do you know what team has the number 1 offense in NBA history, offensive rating in NBA history?
I actually didn't know it was NBA history. The other night I looked at right now in the league. The
Dallas Mavericks.
Okay.
The Dallas Mavericks have the number 1 offensive rating in NBA history. Second, the 2019 Golden State Warriors. And third is the 1987 Lakers, Showtime Lakers. So that's pretty crazy. And this is a team that's right now they're 40-22 or 24, I think their record is. Yeah. So, it's crazy how sick their offense is. And we saw last night, 3 after 3 after 3.
Oh, my goodness.
Seth Curry was in there, and Trey Burke had 8 threes. It was just unreal. But what do you think, Alex, about this game? The Mavericks were up for a lot, and they did blow it in the end. We saw the missed free throw intentional missed free throw by Harden, and we saw Rocco put it back in to tie the game.
That was incredible.
They go into overtime. And there was a point in the game where I was ready to turn it off and go to sleep because I was the Mavericks have this in the bag. They're up 10 and going into the fourth. They're chilling, whatever. And they blew it. And then they started talking. Doris Burke said, is this team too young? Is this team too young? So, Alex, what do you think? Can the Mavs make a run in the playoffs, or are they just too young?
So before I answer the question, I just want to say, I turned it on about halfway through the game, or maybe it was, about halfway. And I saw that one time, maybe this was towards the third quarter, at the end of the third quarter, they had the graphic where they were showing, they were showing the scoring of Luka, Kristaps, Trey Burke, and Tim Hardaway. Those guys were going off.
They combined for like 100. Yeah.
It was like close to 80
Over
by like the
100.
third quarter. So I was just like, oh my goodness. And then I did look it up because I remember I had been hearing about the offensive rating. And I was like, the best of all time? Like, best in the league would be shocking anyway. Like, when you have teams like the Bucks or the Lakers or whoever. Like, it's like, okay, the Mavericks. And then really just watching that game, it reminded me, because I obviously haven't watched them in 4 months or really even thought about that team that much. Their team is really constructed pretty perfectly. But I do think they're too young. They're too young for sure. But something that kind of got overlooked, I think, like a clear, easy takeaway to have is like, okay, you have Luka who's 21, you have Kristaps who's, what is he, 23 now? I don't know. Like these guys are leading.
No, he's actually almost 25. He's like 24. I think his birthday is like in the next
Okay,
month.
sure. Well, by the end of the day, you have like, if you like right now, I'm looking at their roster and it says under experience. These are the numbers for how many years these guys have been in the league: 2, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 3. You have a 5, you have a 6, and then you have JJ Barea who's 13 and Courtney Lee who's 11. But like these guys are mostly pretty young. So obviously this is a very young team. And closing out games is something that gets harder for younger teams to do, obviously, than older ones. But the thing that I was saying got overlooked was how Harden, they couldn't do anything against Harden. Harden was unstoppable. He was unguardable. And it was kind of crazy to see like this team, obviously, I guess it makes sense. This was just an offensive, this was just who has more firepower, who's going to score more points. We knew it was going to get to 150. I think
Which I love. It's the perfect playoff matchup.
It is a great matchup.
Because the thing is, these are both the two teams that they don't have the greatest defense. They don't really do much defensively.
Oh, yeah.
But they go all out on offense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why these two playing together against each other. Like, I saw one tweet, and I forgot who it was. It was Chris Broussard. This is horrible. He tweets, they keep parting the Red Sea in the paint during this game. Like, it's horrible to watch. And I'm like, oh my God, this is such a classic, like, the bad boy Pistons and Michael Jordan and, the old time Celtics and all these old time teams would have never let this happen. Like just enough. Can you not enjoy
You're taking shots, John. You're taking shots, bro.
I'm just saying, like, listen, I get it. These teams aren't great defensively. They're great offensive teams. So, like, you don't need to say, it's so ugly to watch. Like, they're not great at defense, and we're going to see that come in the playoffs. In the playoffs, those teams are going to lose in the second round or even the first round to the Lakers or the Clippers that are better defensive teams. So don't hate on the game.
Yeah,
just enjoy and watch it. It's entertaining to watch.
Speaking of that, let me expose you right quick. You when you were watching the game, this was like at the peak of the Mavericks when they were just playing incredible, and it looked like the Rockets were out of the game. Like they were up, 10, 12 points towards the fourth quarter. And you're like, yo, I wouldn't be surprised if they made a run for the title. Like I could see it. And I was just like, dude, defense wins championships. And I guess that's the two things. Those are the two reasons why they won't be able to make a run for it is, one, they're too young, obviously. And then two, they don't have great defense. So maybe in the next 3 years, 4 years, we see them in a conference final, in a final, and maybe win the championship. I love Luka. I believe in Luka, and Kristaps is obviously, it's great to see him back. He had like 38 points or something nuts. So I do believe in their team, like over in the next couple of years, but I just don't think they're ready just yet.
My hot take is I think that team wins a title in the next 3. I would say 3 might be a hot take, but 5 I don't think should be a hot take. Luka is going to be an MVP in this league. I think he's already a superstar at this point. I think he's top 5 MVP voting. And the thing is, right now their team as constructed, no. But I love getting a guy like Seth Curry. I think they need it like as the other guy in the backcourt with Luka, but maybe you need a more defensive guy next to Luka. So maybe they got to get rid of Hardaway or Curry, or I like the 3-point shooters as well for the offense, but they're going to have to swap out and get a defensive-minded center maybe to play next to Kristaps, who's obviously a more offensive guy, and another defensive wing player to really like anchor the defense. Because obviously this team is great offensively, but in the coming years, I do want to see the Mavericks make some moves in that regard. But if you just look at the team, like getting pieces like Trey Burke and Seth Curry, these dudes were just like anyone. These are guys that anyone could have signed at one point.
Oh yeah.
And obviously, you look at who they traded for. They traded for Kristaps from the Knicks, and they traded up to get Luka in the draft. So I don't want to like jump too hard on this Mavericks bandwagon, of course, but I'm impressed with what they've done to create the number 1 offensive team in NBA history.
Yeah. Well, two things really quick before we move on. the absolute, WTF stat of the night was Trey Burke having 8 3-pointers. Like they just,
Right.
I think they literally just signed him. Like they just signed the dude. And I mean, I remember him being a stud when he was at Michigan and they made it to
It was like 2013 March Madness.
Yeah, they went to the NCAA championship. I think that's the year they lost to Louisville, but.
And they played with Tim Hardaway. Remember that? Tim Hardaway Jr. was his
that's
teammate.
right. That's right. Oh, now they're reunited. That's pretty sick. I didn't even think about that. And I remember he would pull up. That was like baby Steph Curry. Like he was pulling up from deep. But him having 8 threes was just crazy. So,
yeah, it was nuts.
Moving on. Okay, John, you wanted to talk about this earlier, but I think this is not as big of a topic. But you know what? You can prove me wrong. So the Pelicans played the Jazz. The one word biggest story of that whole game is Zion. It's just Zion Williamson. And what we saw happen was load management. We saw this in actually the Last Dance documentary. That's exactly what this reminded me of, where Jordan was super competitive. He's young. He's coming off a foot injury. And he's like, let me get in the game. We're trying to make the playoffs. And they rest him at the end of the game. And they did win the game that when John Paxson hits that shot. But Jordan is like, it was just like itching to get in. He was super mad. And someone who's so competitive, it really angered him. And we saw something similar with Zion Williamson playing 15 minutes. By the way, he dominated those 15 minutes that he was in the game. And he doesn't get to play the last 7.5 minutes of the game. And it makes you wonder, like, okay, I understand that you want to preserve him, but why? What's going on here? So John, Zion was angry about it. Do you think that they should have played him more minutes or not?
It's just like it's a sort of backwards like mindset to have. Like the NBA did all of this. The reason the Spurs and the Wizards and the Kings and the what's the other and all these horrible the Suns that was the team I couldn't think of. The Suns, all these horrible teams are in the bubble, and partly for the whole we're gonna get some more money from these two, but like let's be honest, how many people are watching Nets Magic? Okay, like the truth is
not me.
The big reason that all these teams are in is because they wanted Zion in, and Zion was gonna get that extra that TV money and just bring some more excitement in the league. So the NBA did all this, and
the Pelicans obviously don't care about that.
No, let me finish. I know. I'm just saying they did all this, and now the Pelicans have their shot to be the 8th seed. And this team has been hungry because they were injured, and now they're finally all healthy, and their whole team's together, and they have a really good lineup when healthy. But what happens? This is like your chance. These are the 8 games that matter. And what are they doing? I don't understand. Was he hurt? He's 20 years old. Like this dude could go all day long. Like he's got some bags of ice on the knees and he's fine for the next day. So what are you giving him minutes restriction for? And if you're gonna give it to him, don't you think that you'd rather have him playing at the most important time at the end of the game? So to me, it's like 15 versus 20 minutes. If he played those extra 3 minutes at the end of the game where they were gonna pull out the win that they needed, like they need every single one of these that they can get if they're going to catch up to the Grizzlies and make the play-in game. So what are you doing blowing a close game like that? To me, it makes zero sense.
Right.
And I texted you guys about, Alex and some of our other NBA fans, friends, and you guys were like, oh yeah, well, they're probably doing it just to ease them back into things. And I'm like, you're trying to make the playoffs. Like, what's the point? I don't understand.
Right. Well, so I kind of wanted to agree with you at first, but now I kind of disagree with you because you're a little bit too far on the other end of the spectrum. I think they should have done a better job trying to win the game and trying to
playing their best player.
Playing their best player. Like, but you seem a little like John. Listen, at the end, what's the end goal for them this season?
Make the playoffs.
Make the playoffs, and maybe you take a game or two off the first seed.
No. They this team, all these 8 seeds, the Blazers.
Okay, so it's make the playoffs. But
guess what? Listen, it's wide open. This NBA bubble system, there's no home court, whatever. Okay. They see that some Rondo and Avery Bradley and now LeBron didn't play as well. They're hungry. They want to come after the Lakers, and they have to believe that they can beat that team and make a run in the playoffs.
John,
Zion believe that they're good enough.
Zion Williamson turned 20 last month. He turned 20.
You're right. So why is he not playing in the game?
Okay, so here's why. Someone who has come off an injury, who has bad knees, who wasn't even practicing because he had to leave the bubble, unfortunately, and he came back a few days ago. He cleared the quarantine a few days before they even had this game. So I get that you want to play him, but yes, does it make sense to ease him into it? Yes, you do have to.
No.
Listen, John. They would rather not make the playoffs this season and have the next 10 years of Zion dominating the league, or 12, or, he's 20 years old. So as long as his body can last.
Make him run some extra sprints in practice. Like, I'm sorry. I just can't hear this.
No, John, all right.
I can't hear this. So why not? They should just opt out of the whole bubble just so they can go home, so they can be healthy for next season. Like,
no, because
there's no logic. You have to play. You have to play.
They want to, but John, at the end of the day, it's the same with the Jordan thing. Would they have traded, like, let's say they play Jordan, they don't do load management with Jordan in those first couple of years.
That was different, though.
He breaks his foot again, and now he's, like, out for another season. Like, that throws off your career.
He had just come back. Jordan had just come back, and the doctors were saying, like, just wait. And that team was under 500. This team, when all healthy, has a very formidable
This
squad.
team's under 500 too, for the record.
They're in reality like a 4 or 5 seed, and next year when they're healthy,
I disagree with that.
They are. Get
out of here.
They're better than I think they're better than the Jazz. We saw that last or 2 nights ago. If Zion had played, they would have won that game outright.
Sure.
And then I also think they're better than Oklahoma City. I think they're better than – I don't know about the Blazers, because the Blazers are also, in my opinion, like a 4 or a 5 seed.
Yeah,
they're better than the Grizzlies. They're better than the Grizzlies.
I agree there. But
I don't know what you're doing. Like,
you remember in 2014 when the Miami Heat signed Greg Oden, a guy who's notoriously bad. And don't think I'm comparing Zion to Greg Oden.
But that's exactly what you're doing.
No, I'm not. You haven't let me finish my point. What he would do is they'd put him in to start the game. He gets one. He's already warm. He's playing the game. They take him out of the game. He's on the bike, staying warm. And then he gets back into the game. So when you have a guy who's like their health is like a little questionable, you don't want to risk.
That's a dude who came off like 18 surgeries.
You want to risk any. Listen. They want to risk anything. They don't want to put him in when he's cold. So he was in the game like right after. Like I think he started the fourth quarter, and then they pulled him out. But they didn't want to throw him back in because like when you throw a guy back in cold, you're more likely for injury. And Alvin Gentry was like, we would have loved to play him, but we got to listen to the experts on this one. And that's kind of how I feel too. You got to preserve Zion. I would sacrifice even watching Zion the next few games if I could promise that I get 10 years of him. At least.
Okay, well, just so you know, they lost that game, which was a winnable game, obviously. And guess what? Now they're down 16 points to the Clippers right now as we speak. So,
wow.
They might have blown their shot because it's going to come down to every real game, especially when the Blazers are coming out hungry. So that's a good segue. What were your takeaways from the Grizzlies-Blazers game? And obviously we saw a clutch Melo moment. I thought the team, just watching it in total, like we saw Nurkic in there and Zach Collins and Whiteside off the bench, doing his thing. And obviously CJ was playing very well in the beginning. Dame coming in. He started a little bit slow. We saw Melo hit these clutch threes at the end of the game.
Oh, yeah.
What were your takeaways? Which team, has this changed your thought process at all between Blazers, Grizzlies, and Pelicans? Which team do you think is going to come out as the 8th seed in the West?
So obviously I picked the Blazers last to get the 8th seed during our last episode because I believe they're healthy and they're, re-energized and they're ready to go. And I trust Damian Lillard. So I still believe that they're going to win or get to the 8th seed, obviously not watching them beat the Grizzlies the other night. But kind of my takeaway is just like the Blazers have become my spirit animal or spirit team or whatever you want to call it, because as someone who you always trash on Melo, and I don't know why, I have kind of a soft spot in my heart for Melo.
I'll explain. I'll get to that.
Okay, sure. And Melo, he had like people want to do the whole thing where he's he's inefficient. Like he's a high volume scorer. He needs to shoot this many shots to even get off, to even make small amount, whatever. Like I was very happy to see Bubble Melo extremely efficient, and have a clutch. He was efficient and he was clutch. He hit huge threes. He actually could have he made 2 in a row, I think, and then he could have made a third one to win the game. He didn't, but they ended up getting it done anyway because they have Damian Lillard. They don't need Melo to be the guy. They have Damian. But anyway, I'm just glad to see like Carmelo Anthony playing great basketball. And another thing, I really love Damian Lillard. And recently, I guess shout out to Eli Maluhi. He doesn't think Damian Lillard's top 5 this season for MVP voting. I think Damian Lillard's at least top 5.
No.
So just that too is it made me happy to see Damian Lillard just be super clutch at the end of the game and just really prove his value, and to show look what happens when they're fully healthy. Obviously, it was a close game against Memphis, and Memphis they're a bunch of babies. Those dudes are so young. Those kids are they're our age.
They're 20 years old.
They're
right?
20 years old, 21, 22, whatever. So, but I really love the Blazers, and I am rooting for them to get the 8 seed now that I made the pick, and then I love Lillard, and I'm happy to see Carmelo playing good basketball. But what do you have to say? Do you have anything to say about the Grizzlies, or do you want to?
Yeah, so first I would say Grizzlies, like they came out, and I looked at the game line, and it was pretty close. The line was like 2.5, 3, I think,
Makes
and
sense.
I was like easily. I think the Blazers are a much better team healthy altogether, and they were up 10 in the middle of the game, and I was impressed with what the Grizzlies did. Jaren Jackson Jr., 33 points, only 3 rebounds, which is super weird. I mean, he's a super tall guy.
Yeah, he's like 7 foot almost. Or 6
Yeah,
foot.
you know, they didn't rebound. I mean, as a team, they didn't rebound. No one had like over double-digit rebounds, but
That's what happens when you got Nurkic and Collins on the other side of the floor.
So I was kind of shocked. They made their little comeback in the end, and Ja played pretty well. And then obviously there was that – he had the ball. They could have put up the last-second shot. He kind of fell over and threw it away. But one thing I would say is – so the Grizzlies impressed me. Even though they're young, they came back. But I would say, listen, my disrespect with Melo is when people revere him as like one of the best players of this generation, okay? And that's just –
What does that mean? That's such a broad – What does that title mean? Like
he's not let's just look at the guys. He's not like legacy wise even near like LeBron, Kawhi,
who is
Giannis. Obviously, they're MVPs. I would even put Harden as a better all-time player.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
And no argument Chris Paul. So when people talk about Melo and like, oh yeah, one of the best guys, like
no one claims that though. That's the thing is you are going so far the other way. Like Melo, yes,
dude,
he's not a top.
I just remember like there's some certain people that just ride for Melo. Like I remember our JV basketball coach.
That's different.
Like some people are. I'm like I don't know. I can't believe what they're saying. They think.
Wait,
like
John, tell us what he would say. Like
he would say Melo is better than LeBron.
No,
like,
that's obviously that's crazy. No, okay. I'm not claiming that.
But look. Let's look what Melo did. Okay, impressive. He had 21 points and he hit those clutch shots at the end. And guess what? He's in reality like the 4th or 5th like most important player on this team. So my thing is like I love the role for him. It's great, He 21 points. CJ had 33, led the way. Dame had 29, and then Nurkic had 18. Gary Trent Jr. 17. So there's dudes that
Gary Trent Jr. also played an incredible defense.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like Melo, great role player, great fit with this team. But he's not a number 1 guy on a team that's going to do anything. That's my opinion.
Just give him respect. I'm just mad because in the past year, I've heard you
him as a role player.
I've heard you call him washed multiple times. Okay?
He was. I respect him as a role player. Or when he was like, hey, yo, P, they want me to come off the bench now when he was on OKC. Like, yeah, like, you're like, sorry. Like,
that was a fit.
For him to be so, like, pompous and like, oh, bro, like, I'm way too good to come off the bench. Like, that to me was like, bro, know who you are. And now he does. He took a season off. His number is 00 now, and he's like has this new mindset about basketball. I respect it. He's like the 3rd probably best offensive player. Maybe you say less, but he's like the 4th or 5th best most important player on this team, and that's his role. You would never
good.
Melo. Sorry, like
good and respect it.
I respect him as the 3rd best player on this team.
Okay, so now that we have NBA basketball back, John and I, we're trying to bring back some of our old segments that we've had in the past. So we're going to start off with the performance of the week. But this is, obviously we're only going off a couple of days. But obviously this one, you got to tip our hat to James Harden, 49 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks on 70% shooting and 1 turnover. And he went 18 from 21 from the free throw line. Like this dude, I think he
perfect game to have. Really.
Near perfect game. It probably is a perfect game. The only shots that he missed were 3-pointers or those free throws. Like every shot that he, other than a 3-pointer or a free throw, he made all of those.
Right.
It's incredible. He was getting right to the rack. Maybe Chris Broussard was right. They were just partying the Red Sea. But of course, the highlight of the game was not any of his makes. It was his miss. That important miss, which he did come out and say after. He said it wasn't on purpose, but still.
He was trying to make that?
Yeah. So what he said, I actually watched the video.
Wow.
I was talking about it with Dad, and we were wondering. But what happened was, they're down 3 points, and he has 2 free throws. He makes the first. Now they're down 2, and there's like 3 seconds left.
Well, remember they went to go intentionally foul, but he threw it up.
Yeah. So he didn't get 3-pointers. He didn't get 3. He didn't get 3 shots.
I know he got 2.
Yeah. So then he misses the second one right a little bit to the left. And I don't know if I went back and watched this in slow motion, John. The guy who was on that side of the hoop was PJ Tucker boxing out Chris Stapps.
Right.
Kristaps doesn't realize Kristaps is so focused on boxing out 6'5" PJ Tucker, and Kristaps is just relying on his length.
Robert Covington.
Robert Covington comes from the other side.
Right.
And Kristaps really doesn't even like pay attention because he's like, oh, I got PJ Tucker behind me. Let me just put my hand up. He was pulling a Harrison Steyer, just relying on his height to help him out. and he was putting his hand out, and of course Rocco comes over and just jumps in the air, gets the ball and puts it right back up to tie the game. So that was also so I guess performance of the weekend, James Harden, and maybe like honorable mention Robert Covington.
Yeah, my performance of the week is the NBA refs in the Bucks Celtics game because all time great. They overturned two of those calls, switched 2 calls to keep the superstar in the game, and the Bucks got to win. So there you go.
I couldn't hear you. I think you have some salt in your throat.
No, yeah, those refs were point shaving. They had money on the game.
Be quiet, bro. I had money on the game. Let's go.
Yeah.
But also the other thing we're gonna bring back is our safe picks of the week. So these are who we're gonna make picks on who you should bet on or maybe not bet on, but who we think is gonna win based on the line. So John, why don't you give us your safe pick of the week?
Yeah, so my safe pick is I'm going with a team that just is coming off a loss and they're playing a bad team and I know they're going to be hungry. And that's tomorrow on Sunday, August 2nd, or maybe this podcast we're going to probably release it tomorrow, or so maybe it's today. They're playing the Mavericks are playing the Suns and they're favored by 5.5 points. So that's at 9 p.m. tomorrow. I would put money on that. I think Mavericks are going to come out against the Suns, who are not a very great team. And I think they're going to at least win by like 10-ish. That's the type of range I would see it. So they should win by at least 5.5, So 6 or more. And I think that's a pretty safe bet to me.
That does sound pretty safe, John. That's pretty safe. You got Luka versus Devin Booker, but the Mavericks are obviously much better than the Suns. So
yeah, look, they just scored 150 points. So I guess
so hopefully they can blow the Suns out. The Suns aren't really playing for much, but I am going to pick a different game. I really believe in Milwaukee. Obviously, I bet on them against the Celtics. I really believe in Milwaukee. I believe in Giannis. In Giannis, we trust. So I'm going to pick them over Houston, who I don't believe Houston is I don't think they match up well at all with the Bucks. And I think that the line is Milwaukee minus 3.5. Like, you really think Houston's going to be within 3 points? Like, Houston – Mike D'Antoni makes jokes about how they're not good at defense. And we talked about how important it is to have a guy who can just somewhat,
right. They're one of the teams that has no one. They're one of the teams that has no one.
Who really? And they're so undersized. They're a team that plays, very, very small ball. So
they're going to have Westbrook on them.
Exactly. They're going to have like Westbrook guarding Giannis. So I just think that Milwaukee's going to, they're going to take Houston to school. And there's going to be no answer for Giannis, no answer for the 3-point shooting of Milwaukee. The only hope would be Harden going for 50 and like Westbrook going for 40.
Listen,
that's literally it.
I would say good pick, but not necessarily a safe pick. I mean, it's good because if you know that both teams are at full strength and going to play their best basketball, then yes, the Bucks are going to win by more than 4, I think. Wow. But the problem is they just won this one game. They came back. It was their first game back. They beat the Celtics. Who knows? They've already got everything clinched. Like, why would they not just – they might start chilling out. They might do this whole minutes restriction thing because they actually don't have anything to do.
Well, I think they're less likely to do that in their second game and a game against Houston. Like, you're more likely to do that against, I don't know if they're playing the Suns or if they're playing, like, or Washington. Like, but this isn't necessarily the game that I think that would happen.
Yeah. More unknown, though. I don't know. It's more – more risky, but we'll see. I think good pick, but my pick's definitely better.
Yeah, well, you know what? We'll see. We will see. And that's what we'll come back next week, and we're going to keep score now. We're gonna reset. We used to do it.
Yeah, you would like to reset it because I was beating you for sure.
What is it? It was probably like 3-2.
No, it was probably 3-2. I had a few more games in you.
I don't know. Anyway, this has been great. I'm, once again, just going to say it again.
We're missing the game. We got to get off. We're missing the Clippers.
We got to go watch this Clippers game. See if they're going to play Zion, which they're probably not. But, John, any final thoughts?
No, that's it. That's that.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. As always, go Heat and have a good one. Peace out.